Hey guys, welcome back to Suburban Ranch. So today we're doing a little bit of maintenance on our 2010 Lexus RX350, and we're going to be replacing an oil cooler pipe, which is one of the common failure points on these cars. Alright, so the first step is to remove this plastic underbody panel. So I'm going to start by removing these push pins. There's 3 on each side, and then we've got a series of 10mm bolts as well. Oh, great. Oh, no. Okay, so here's one of the broken bolts that we're going to try to address. I've already drilled a pilot hole right through the center of the bolt. I'm going to step up in drill bit size and drill a slightly larger hole now. All right, so next up, we're going to tap in our easy out. Oh, I think it's coming, guys. Look at that. Look at that, guys. You can see the threads right there. We got it out. All right, so since that bolt was in there and it was rusted and so tight, I'm just gonna run a tap through the threads here. This is an M6x1 tap. I already got it started. Just clean up the threads for our new bolt. And I put a little bit of oil on the tap as I was running it in. Look at that, beautiful threads now. Okay guys, so you saw how we removed the broken bolt here. Well, we did the same exact trick on this bolt. So we pulled that with an easy out, cleaned up the threads, and we got a brand new set of bolts at the hardware store. So now we're actually ready to start the project that we set out to do. Okay, so here is a look at the top connections of those oil cooler lines, and you can see the old ones are rubber. So I'm going to try to loosen these 3 bolts, holding that top connection on. Got a 12mm socket and a universal joint. Okay, so we're able to break that one loose. Got it. Now there's one more nut here in the back, and that's going to be the real trick. There we go. Got that one broken loose too. So used a 1/4 inch deep well and another universal joint to get at that back nut. Okay, so just removing that last nut by hand. I did drain the oil before we started, but you can see there's still a little bit leaking out here. I've got a catch can down below. But that's the top connection. So we'll let that drain for a minute and then we'll move to the bottom connection. Okay, now we're gonna break loose these bottom 3 bolts. And these are actually a little bit easier to get at. I'm gonna start with my 1/4 inch deep well, 12mm, and a U-joint on the far right here. There we go, got it. There we go. I'm gonna go to my 3/8 shallow 12mm on this center bolt. A little bit of a longer ratchet to work with. Ah, there it goes. Boy, those are hard to break loose. There we go. And then the last one, I'm actually going to use a 12mm end wrench from the bottom here. All right, and there's the last nut. All right, so now we've got to pull this assembly out. I'm going to try to pull it through the top here. And there it is. So that's the original assembly with the rubber hoses, and we'll compare that to the new one with the metal hoses. All right, so before we put the new oil cooler lines on, we've got everything cleaned up. We stuck a couple of rags into the holes so nothing fell into the engine. We're going to go ahead and pull this stud out. So this is an E8. And the reason for that is so that we can more easily get the new oil cooler lines in place. Since they're metal, it's a little bit more challenging to get them into place. So we'll give ourselves a little bit more room to work. All right, guys, so here is a look at the new one, all metal, no rubber hoses at all. Let's see if we can slide this into place. It's obviously going to be a little bit trickier to work with since it's not flexible. But since we took that stud out, I think we should be able to get it. Oh yeah, just like that. Okay, so let's get our gaskets before we put it in place. All right, so here's a look at the new gaskets. One thing I want to point out is there's a dimple on these gaskets. So the dimple should be facing towards the lines. So you can see it's a little bit indented on this side and a little bit protruded on this side. So face the protrusion out towards the lines. So we'll go ahead and do the top one first. There we go. All right, so we've got both studs, or the top stud started and the bottom stud has always been in place. So we've encapsulated that gasket, and we'll do the same thing on the bottom now. Okay, get that stud started. All right, so we've got the bottom two studs started as well. So now all we have to do is tighten everything up. All right, so we are on the hardest to get at bolt. Obviously I've got a U-joint. I did loosen this plug so that I could get a little bit better of an angle. I'm just gonna tighten this by feel. You're not gonna get a good torque reading with the U-joint and everything in place and all these extensions. So I'm just gonna do it by feel, and that feels pretty good right there. I would estimate that's probably about 15 to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so now we're going to go through and tighten the bolts on the bottom flange. I've already snugged all of them pretty evenly. All right, so we've let the engine warm up. Here's a look at the engine oil cooler pipes. Looks like we have no leaks at all. The last step is to just install the plastic shield and we'll be all done. Well, another project on the Lexus is done. If you found this video useful, please do subscribe.